Hey guys, so welcome back to today's video. So over the last couple of weeks, I've had a couple of clients come to see me experiencing some knee pain, and following on from our assessment, one of the things that we identified was a lack of knee stability, a lack of stabilization of the limb upon ground contact. And what I'm going to do today is take you through some of the exercises that I've prescribed, some of the standards I've kind of set. And the reality is, I think that every single one of you watching this, if you were to go through and follow along with these movements, you should be able to meet these standards. And if you can't, it highlights a potential weakness or an area of development that we can kind of build upon. All right. So for me, these movements are very much the first rung on the ladder. Once we can kind of achieve these standards, we can then take the next jump up, and we can then start to challenge and load the stability in our leg through more advanced exercises. Because the reality is that it's all about learning how to stabilize the joints. It's not just about how strong muscles are. So it doesn't matter how many leg extension you do, leg curls you do. That's not necessarily going to be the answer to stability. What we're looking to do is to get the foot, the ankle, the calves, the tibialis anterior, the quadriceps, the hamstrings, the glutes, to work as an entire unit, to work as a team. And there's a rhythm, timing, coordination to the movement, and it's really starting to ingrain that, because you will see this carry over to your squats, to your deadlifts, to your sprints, to your jumps, because all of those require a timing, rhythm and coordination to not only produce the movement but to produce force. Now, I've always sort of said this, is that stability is the foundation of strength. You can't produce force if you're not stable. You can't fire a cannon from a canoe, blah blah blah. So what we're going to go through here is sort of my main sort of exercise that I like to start people out. And when I get people to do these, what I'm looking for is I will challenge them through repetitions. I want to see what happens when they fatigue. What is their compensation pattern? Are they going to sort of change the movement so they can utilize more quads, or are they going to sort of loosen their trunk so they can achieve the movement? So all of this thing is how we identify an individual's weakness in stability. Some people are core dominant, they don't want to stiffen the midsection. Some people are limb dominant, they're better at moving one side to the other. So these are things we're kind of looking for as I go through these exercises. Okay, so when I get someone in that's experiencing knee pain, I'll initially take them through, obviously after a passive assessment, passive range of motion assessment, I will start to challenge them with a little bit of stability. So this clockwork drill that I kind of do, which is, again, I'm sure you've seen before, this will kind of highlight what their movement strategies are, what their compensation strategies might be, and it starts to challenge the movement in many different planes of motion. And again, this is a nice opportunity for me to see what's going on at the foot, what's going on at the knee, what's going on at the hip, and then gives me a chance to coach them, get them to feel what I want them to feel. And this might mean getting them to sort of hold on to something to kind of maybe take the balance component out of it to begin with, and then progressing them through to doing this in open space as I'm doing here. And then also we're looking for any limb discrepancy. Is there a difference between right and left, and what's going on there? So that is the first protocol. Okay, from there I start to look at the hips. So I'll go into a side lying like leg raise. And now with this one, what you want to do is you set up in a dead straight line. You want to have both your toes pulled towards you. This will give you some tension on the leg. We want to try and take the slack out of both the ankle and the knee, and make sure that the driver of this movement is the ball and socket joint of the hip. Okay. We're then going to basically take the top leg behind the bottom leg and lower the foot to the floor. So you are leading this movement with the heel. One way that they will compensate if they do fatigue through the hip is that they will turn their toe to the ceiling. This is trying to get them to be able to use their quad more. So this is a compensation pattern to try and utilize more quadricep. Again, most people are quad dominant, so you will kind of go here through fatigue. But I kind of want to see how many reps do they start to want to cheat the movement, and at what level they kind of start to change. And for me, my standard on this is 30 perfect reps on each side. I think if you can achieve that, we need to advance the exercise. And this is just the first thing of just seeing how not only strong and efficient and how well in tune they are with recruiting their hip musculature, but also how much capacity it has, and is there a difference between right and left. From here, we'll then look at getting them up onto their feet and going through some hip work, so the mini band sidewalks. Now with the mini band sidewalks, these are butchered left, right and center. These probably need a video on their own in terms of how to do them correctly. But the reality is that what we're looking for here is for this to be a hip dominant movement. Some people they have their foot or their lower part of their leg as the driver and the hip is the passenger. The hip needs to be the driver and the leg needs to be the passenger. So as you land on ground contact, you should land in the position that you'd want to land if you were doing a lateral jump and landing on one leg. Okay, so we don't want to see the foot rolling from inside edge to outside edge. We want to see that foot landing dead straight. Foot is landing under knee, which is under hip, and we are moving nice and robotically to left and right. I like these to look quite robotic when done correctly. Okay, again, we'll go 30 reps each side. I look to see what is being challenged, what their first port of breakdown is. So again, with this is that you'll get the two ways that they will cheat this. Generally, they will stand up out of that sort of hip hinge position. That tells me that their hips are weak and getting tired, and they'd rather use their quadriceps. The second one is that they'll tend to really relax their core and snake and squirm their way left and right. Again, this tells me that they lack a little bit of core stiffness. So every exercise, every rep, every set gives me clues as to what we need to work on. From here, we're going to go over into banded terminal knee extensions. Now with the banded terminal knee extension, this tells me how they like to prioritize leg extension and hip extension, because what I'm looking for is I want the knee and the hip to extend in perfect coordination. So that knee should come back into extension as the hip comes into extension. So this is the quadriceps, hamstrings and glutes working perfectly together to produce leg extension and hip extension. So that is what we want to try and do when we're trying to produce force and we jump. We want that triple extension. I want extension of the ankle, knee and hip in perfect timing and perfect rhythm. And I think we can start to see what the individual strategies are when we put them in this position, because most people would just favor knee extension. They just pull the knee back. There's no hip extension happening at all, and this tells me that their hips aren't contributing to the leg stability or the knee stability in this situation. So again, gives me an opportunity to coach it, gives them an opportunity to feel it, so that then when we take this movement and come over to the next exercise, which is a low box step down, that they trying to just basically replicate that terminal knee extension into this motion. Okay, so with the low box step down in this exercise, in this video, I'm using roughly about an 8-inch block. I think these plates are about 4 inches. And what I like to do is, again, my entry level standard is to do this on a 12-inch box for 30 reps on each leg with perfect form, no wobble, no oscillation of the knee. But we start somewhere, right? So I normally start people on an 8. I get them to feel it. If it looks good and feels good and they can achieve 30, I'll raise it up and see at what point they break down. My first baseline level is 12-inch box for 30 reps. My then second one is 1 inch above the knee for box height, and then aiming for 30 reps. That's quite advanced. You'll be going into about almost 3/4 of a range of a full range of a squat. And that is a tough exercise if you're doing that without holding on to anything, right? You're getting coordination of all the muscles, balance, stability, all of that stuff's going on. And that's something that we want to sort of build towards. But in the early stages, what I'm looking for is, where are they now? And what breaks down and what do we need to work on? What coaching cues do they need to get? What exercises are going to help them on their journey to stability and moving away from pain? And that's kind of what we're always doing. I'm always kind of exploring. Once something looks good, I'll challenge it, okay? And I'll challenge it through a way of what I think might break down first. So if that's a core challenge, then I might get them holding something or holding a posture that maybe challenges their core. So it's always a little bit of exploration when you're doing this with clients, because everyone is different. Everyone has a unique challenge that they're overcoming, right? So it's all about figuring out what is the right exercise or the right prescription for that individual. The next one we're going to go through is a standing clam. Now, I really like this exercise. I do think it's quite a tough exercise for people to get their head around. Again, similar to the sidewalk in the sense of how people want to cheat this. They will either want to stand up out of the sort of hip hinge position, and again, that is a way of moving away from their posterior chain and into their anterior chain, or they'll start to move through their trunk because their core can't contribute to the movement. But really what you're doing here is you're challenging the standing leg. The key thing that I like to do here is, as you come down and sit into this position and shift your weight across to the standing leg, make sure that you fully flex the knee. So you're taking the knee out of the equation here, right? So I like to get people to imagine that they're holding a pen in the back of the knee and they can't let it drop. And now the reason for that is sometimes people do this with a sort of just a semi-bent leg. And what happens is, again, much like the sidewalks, they want to initiate the movement with their foot, and the knee and the hip follow the foot. So by taking the knee out of the equation, we can really turn this into a hip dominant movement. And really what's happening is as you raise one leg and stretch that band's trying to pull my standing leg with it. but I'm then providing that lateral stability on the outside of that leg to really remain strong and maintain my balance throughout this exercise. Again, I want 30 reps on each leg as a sort of benchmark to work towards. Now, if they can only do 10 and then they wobble and fall over, great, we'll do 3 sets of 10, and then we gradually build it up, and I'm trying to take them to that 30 rep mark. Okay, and then the last exercise we're going to kind of go through here is going to be an isometric hamstring hold. Now, this is a tough exercise, and my standard here is a 30-second hold on each leg, which is tough. So again, if someone comes in and they can only hold 5 seconds on one leg, then we might do 6 sets of 5 to accumulate 30 seconds. Then we might do 3 sets of 10, 2 sets of 15, and trying to build up to that 30-second hold. For some people, they might not be able to do the single leg version yet. Maybe it's too aggressive. So then I will build them up to be able to do 30 seconds bilaterally, getting them to feel it, maybe going into a bilateral, so a march. So you hold on 2 legs, you then take one leg off for a second, put it down, take the other leg off for a second, and get them used to working that single leg before progressing them through to the single leg version. And I think it's all about getting people to meet standards. So with this is that if you go through this and maybe you haven't experienced knee pain, you haven't got any stability issues, but you go through this series and you're like, oh God, I can't do this one. I can do all of the other ones, but I can't do this one. Well, there's something to work on. And for me, is once you can hit these standards, is never lose them, maintain them for as long as you possibly can. And that requires that we practice them regularly. So like the side lying leg raises are in my warm up that I do pretty much every single day. The sidewalks I'll do multiple times a week. Standing clams I do multiple times a week. And this is what keeps us healthy and able to train into the long term, right? Which keeps injuries at bay. Because as I've sort of mentioned before, our biggest obstacle to progress is getting injured. So I think we always need to be having an insurance policy to protect us against injury. And I think the best way of doing that is to make sure that we master the basics, that we never take our eyes off what is really important, and that is stability and moving well, and then loading on top of that. Okay, so hopefully you guys found this useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Again, as I sort of mentioned in the video the other day, is that I have now launched my sort of online bespoke coaching program. So if you want to get some programs written by me, take a deep dive into how we can sort of work together, then please feel free to sort of check out the link in the bio below, where I'll sort of send you the link to going over to view my sort of website and where you can reach out for that. If you have any questions on this video or any of my coaching things, then please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to talk about it. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.